A storm raged outside the ancient walls of Buckingham Palace, rain slapping against stained glass windows while the wind howled like the ghosts of monarchs past. Deep within its core, in a room long sealed from public memory, something stirred. The blue room untouched, off limits and shrouded in imperial silence since the reign of Queen Victoria held its breath. It was here, beneath layers of dust and decades of forgotten duty, that a royal archivist, cataloguing old ledgers by candlelight due to a power outage, made a discovery that would ripple through the monarchy like an earthquake. A creak from the corner, a shift in the wood panelling, and then the unmistakable click of a hidden mechanism revealing a drawer concealed for over 100 years. What lay inside was not gold nor jewels, but something far more dangerous: truth. Fragile parchment, aged to a crisp yellow, bore a handwritten title concerning the future matriarch. The ink, though faded, pulsed with a strange gravity. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The handwriting was confirmed within minutes. Every swirling curve, every imperial flourish matched known letters from Queen Victoria herself. The archivist froze as their eyes skimmed the contents. There it was beneath poetic warnings and veiled metaphors: the rose with silent fire. A woman destined to restore the realm in its darkest dusk. But it wasn't just metaphorical musing. The name Catherine was written 3 times, encircled in red wax that had faded but not bled. No titles, no surnames, just Catherine. The revelation dropped like a guillotine. The document was rushed to the senior-most archivist, whose trembling hands barely managed to seal it in a velvet-wrapped case before security was summoned. Within hours, the palace was locked down, corridors secured, and a discreet message was relayed to royal aides: "You need to see this. It's unsettling." The silence in the halls shifted. Those who touched the prophecy spoke in whispers. The words within weren't a tale of vague guidance, they were laced with eerie specificity. "The rose shall wear the crown of the beloved, rise from shadows of loss, and silence the lion's pride." That line alone sent chills down the spines of those familiar with Catherine's journey, her engagement ring, once Diana's. The long walk in William's shadow, the growing murmurs of her quiet authority. And now, this? Palace staff whispered that the prophecy had been locked away for a reason, and now fate or something far more orchestrated had unearthed it. Some wondered aloud whether this was destiny reaching back, or history spiraling toward a chosen point. As whispers echo through marble halls, one question arises: how could a monarch from the 1800s possibly foresee the rise of Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge? When royal historian Dr. Marcus Hall received the discreet phone call from Buckingham's inner sanctum, he almost declined. A document allegedly written by Queen Victoria predicting the future. It sounded like yet another overzealous archivist misreading poetic ramblings. But something in the voice on the other end, tight, urgent, on the edge of fear, compelled him to go. And what he found shattered the boundary between myth and monarchy. The moment his eyes scanned the parchment, his skin went cold. Victoria's seal was intact, her handwriting flawless, unmistakable. No forgeries, no fabrications. It was real. And it wasn't simply a vision, it was a roadmap, laden with coded truths, terrifying precision, and a chilling portrait of what was to come. The years 2022 to 2025 were underlined in gold ink, matched with celestial alignments and cryptic notations referencing eclipses and royal coronations of influence. It wasn't a vague musing, it was a prophetic calculation, and the future it spoke of had already begun to unfold. Dr. Hall read deeper. A phrase leapt from the page with venomous force: "The beloved figure in sapphire shall inherit the heart once broken." The reference was undeniable. Diana's sapphire engagement ring, now worn by Catherine, was more than a sentimental heirloom. In Victoria's words, it marked the chosen matriarch, the one destined to bind the crown with the people's gaze. Another passage delivered an even darker omen: "One shall wear the name but not the light, and the realm shall turn their eyes elsewhere." For those inside the palace, the message was piercing. Camilla may have the title, but the prophecy foreshadowed a public dethroning of affection. Catherine wasn't merely rising, she was foretold to eclipse. The hallways of power began to hum with dread. Dr. Hall, normally calm under pressure, demanded an immediate lockdown of the royal archives, not for protection but containment. If word of this prophecy reached the public, it could ignite a storm of interpretation, division, and consequence. Yet, as often happens within these ancient walls, secrets refuse to stay silent. Within hours, the prophecy's existence was whispered to key advisors. Tension clawed through the palace advisory council like wildfire. Some urged silence, others saw opportunity, but none could deny the dangerous timing, the prophecy's eerie alignment with the royal rift between Camilla and Catherine, already inflamed by recent shifts in patronage and public favour. The parallels were too precise to ignore, and with every hour, the palace's grip on control slipped further. Victoria had written about a future monarch who would rise not through succession but affection, not through power but presence. And now that woman was here. But even more chilling than the prophecy's accuracy is the revelation that Queen Elizabeth may have known about it all along. In the quiet aftermath of Queen Elizabeth II's funeral, when the world mourned a monarch and the palace shrouded itself in ritual, a quiet procession of aides moved through the late Queen's private study with clinical precision. Their purpose was veiled, their urgency masked by GRI. But among the ancient books and personal papers, they removed 3 locked wooden boxes, each marked only with 2 initials, 5th P. What appeared to be mere archiving turned out to be the careful extraction of royal dynamite. Victoria's Prophecy. The title, whispered behind closed doors for decades, was not a myth or forgotten fantasy. It was real. And it had been in Elizabeth's possession for most of her reign. Now, with her gone, the truth could no longer be hidden. Insiders now confirm what many feared: the Queen knew. She knew about the prophecy, she believed in it, and she took deliberate steps to shield it from those she deemed unworthy, including Camilla. As a young monarch, Elizabeth had reportedly been handed the documents privately by her father's most trusted advisor, told to guard them, not reveal them, and above all, to wait. What she found inside those aged pages both haunted and guided her. Over the years, she made annotations in the margins. Phrases like "the chosen carries silence well" and "she wears legacy with grace" appeared next to the references to the future matriarch. One name was circled in pencil more than once: Catherine. Not Camilla, never Camilla. According to sources close to the late Queen's private secretaries, Elizabeth believed that Camilla's reign, however justified by love or legality, would fracture the invisible bond between crown and public. She feared Camilla's presence might reignite past scandals and obscure the line of sentiment the monarchy so desperately needed. And so, while publicly endorsing her daughter-in-law, the Queen quietly placed her hopes and the prophecy's weight on Catherine's shoulders. Her strategy was subtle, almost imperceptible. Assignments that brought Catherine closer to Commonwealth initiatives, briefings designed to prepare her for diplomatic leadership, and calculated absences where Catherine filled in. Without drawing attention, these were not accidents. They were maneuvers, orchestrated plays to position her in the image Victoria described over a century ago. A woman who would restore not just duty, but dignity. Palace letters now emerging, likely never meant to see the light of day, speak of Elizabeth's quiet conviction and deep unease about premature titles. One aide recalls a moment when the Queen, in a rare moment of candour, sighed and said, "One will wear the crown, but another will carry the weight." But what is perhaps most shocking of all is that Camilla, despite her closeness to the monarch, was deliberately kept in the dark. She was never shown the prophecy, never told of its existence, never even allowed near the boxes in the study. When asked why, Elizabeth allegedly replied, "Because it is not hers to carry." And just as these secrets unravel, Catherine herself is drawn into the storm, unaware that she is, quite literally, fulfilling a destiny written 150 years ago. When Catherine was finally handed the prophecy, the room fell into a stillness so profound it felt like time itself paused. She didn't speak, didn't blink. For 10 full minutes, those who stood nearby described a silence that felt almost sacred. Her eyes scanned Queen Victoria's words, each line a reflection, a riddle, and a reckoning. Then came the tears, not dramatic or uncontrolled, but quiet, resolute, and full of understanding. This wasn't just history, it was inheritance. In that moment, the weight of centuries seemed to settle upon her shoulders. A woman once regarded as composed, dutiful, and modest now stood at the precipice of something far greater. And within days, everything changed. Those closest to her began to notice the transformation. Not loud, not forced, but unmistakable. Catherine's voice, once measured with deference, now carried conviction. In meetings, her tone held reso. In appearances, her gaze held something deeper. There was no announcement, but something ancient had awakened. At night, she confided in William. The conversation, recounted only by a trusted aide, was short but monumental. She showed him the parchment, told him everything. His response, though few words, was firm. "If this is true," he said, "then you were always meant to lead." From that moment on, the couple moved as one, strategic, unified, and unshaken. Catherine, once reluctant to dominate the spotlight, now stepped forward with a calm command that startled even the most seasoned courtiers. Behind palace doors, she began to restructure. Meetings once headed by senior aides now saw Catherine take lead. Charitable initiatives, long buried in bureaucracy, were revived with purpose. She chose causes that resonated with the prophecy's theme: restoration, rebirth, and healing. Her influence extended beyond public gestures. It reached into the marrow of royal duty. But the palace is no place for quiet revolutions to go unnoticed. Camilla, ever attuned to the undercurrents of power, sensed the shift. Her usual confidants grew distant. Public engagements that once centered on her now subtly pivoted toward Catherine. She felt the air thicken with comparison, tension, and quiet exclusion. And though no words were exchanged, the energy between the two women began to shift. Camilla's smiles grew tighter, her public confidence more performative. In private, she pressed Charles, only to be met with vague reassurances. But the truth was no longer deniable. Catherine was no longer merely the wife of a future king. She was becoming something else entirely, something foretold. And those who watched her closely began to see it. The steady resolve, the fierce calm, the unmistakable aura of someone who no longer questioned her place but claimed it. She had become the embodiment of Victoria's silent fire. The woman destined to restore the soul of the realm not through force but through presence. And as whispers turned to conviction within the palace walls, history stirred once more. As Catherine leans into her destiny, Buckingham Palace faces its greatest internal divide since the abdication crisis. Camilla had weathered storms before. From public scorn to whispered disapproval, she had survived it all, emerging beside Charles, crowned and affirmed, her status secured. But nothing could have prepared her for this. The silence in the corridors, the sideways glances, the guarded tones of senior aides, it all signaled something far worse than scandal. It was exclusion, deliberate, calculated. When Camilla finally cornered the Lord Chamberlain in the Privy Council room, demanding to know what everyone was hiding, the truth unraveled in 4 words: Queen Victoria's written prophecy. Her face, as one witness later confided, drained of colour. She insisted on seeing the documents, refused to wait. And when the parchment was laid before her, marked with Victoria's unmistakable seal and Catherine's name etched in a monarch's hand, her fury could no longer be contained. "This changes nothing," she snapped, her voice echoing through the chamber. But in her heart, the tremor had begun. She wasn't just reading a document, she was watching her legacy evaporate in ink. Behind closed doors, the confrontation deepened. Camilla accused the royal household of manipulation, of orchestrating a narrative meant to cast her aside. She demanded to know how long they had known, who had hidden the prophecy, and why she, queen consort, had been kept in the dark. No one answered. And in that silence, she saw the truth. The institution had chosen its direction, and she was no longer at its center. The comparisons she had once shrugged off now returned with a vengeance. Cat. Erin, the people's favorite, the graceful, the silent rose, Victoria had predicted was being lifted by something more than popularity, She was being mythologized, and Camilla, after a lifetime spent pushing past shadows, felt herself sinking into one. Her outburst with Charles was inevitable. Their private conversation, described by insiders as volatile and devastating, cracked the foundation of a bond already under strain. She accused him of knowing, of playing both sides. He, torn between duty and love, said only, "You know what the people feel." In the days that followed, the fracture became visible. Members of Camilla's trusted circle began to drift. Advisors stopped returning calls. Former allies started whispering phrases like strategic relevance and emotional alignment. One longtime aide submitted a quiet resignation rumored to be heading for Catherine's growing team. The palace atmosphere shifted. Events once shared between the two women became imbalanced. Photographs, headlines, body language all began to tell the story without needing words. The media, sensing blood, sharpened their claws. A rift renewed? Read one tabloid. "The Queen and the Crown Princess, a tale of two thrones," declared another. Camilla pushed back, increased her appearances, held her ground. But the tone had changed, the audience had changed, and most painfully, the tide inside the palace had changed. The prophecy had not simply been read, it had taken root, and while Camilla fought to prove her relevance, the very monarchy she defended began to bend in a new direction. But the prophecy's power doesn't end in whispers, it begins to affect policy, influence, and ultimately, the symbolic structure of monarchy itself. Overnight, the rhythm of the palace began to change. It was subtle at first, quiet adjustments on internal schedules, shuffled names on formal programs, but to those watching closely, it signaled something seismic. Key patronages that had once been firmly under Camilla's oversight were now, without official announcement, reallocated under Catherine's name. Meetings previously chaired by the Queen Consort were suddenly presided over by the Princess of Wales. The explanation given to the press was procedural, administrative. But within the palace walls, the shift was unmistakable. Influence was being transferred, and behind it all stood a monarch torn between sentiment and survival. Charles, once steadfast in balancing loyalties, now found himself making decisions not from emotion but from the weight of legacy. The prophecy loomed, the public sentiment grew louder, and Catherine's calm, unwavering presence made choosing her not just easier, it made it inevitable. Outside the gates, the media began to circle. Analysts noticed the sudden uptick in Catherine's engagements, the specific nature of her new roles. Publications that had long chronicled her fashion choices now examined her rising political symbolism. When she delivered a rare and deeply emotional speech on restoring faith in tradition, the reaction was instantaneous. Crowds surged, headlines flared, and within hours, royal polls showed a staggering boost in support. Her words weren't just touching, they were transformative. They echoed something long absent from the monarchy: belief. That night, a letter handwritten and never intended for public view was quietly passed between two senior courtiers. It came from Princess Anne, and it read, "Perhaps the prophecy knew better than us all." In 6 words, Anne confirmed what many had begun to whisper. Catherine was no longer rising, she had risen. William, ever reserved in his political maneuvers, took a decisive step. For the first time in years, he formed a strategic working group, entirely separate from the king's primary advisors. Teared around Catherine's initiatives. His move sent a clear message: their reign would not begin with compromise, but with conviction. United, aligned, and deliberate, William and Catherine became a force the palace could no longer sideline. Even those once skeptical began to recalibrate. Royal aides, many of whom had long operated in Camilla's orbit, quietly transitioned their loyalties. Memos, briefings, and reports started referring to Catherine not just as the Princess of Wales, but, in coded language, as the future flame. It was a title never uttered aloud, yet repeated behind closed doors with reverence. The monarchy, both symbolically and structurally, was being recast around her. Yet amidst this swelling momentum, one truth had yet to be uncovered. And then, just as tensions peak, an even deeper revelation emerges. Victoria's prophecy wasn't the only document. An envelope, brittle with time but sealed in blood-red wax, was discovered beneath a false bottom in Queen Victoria's writing desk. Its inscription was brief, haunting, and deliberate, to be read upon fulfillment of the first sign. The seal had remained untouched for over a century, waiting. And now, with Catherine's rise echoing every line of the first prophecy, the moment had arrived. The contents of this second letter, guarded more fiercely than the first, would send an even deeper chill through the royal corridors. Its tone was different, sharper, colder, and devastatingly clear. The prophecy had not ended with Catherine's emergence. It had only begun. This second revelation warned of a looming betrayal, one not from adversaries, but from within. It spoke of a trial by betrayal and an oath from a lion turned cold. The flame that was rising would soon be tested. And Windsor, the ancient heart of royal tradition, would be the battleground. The message rattled the palace to its core. Its language was poetic but precise. One line, in particular, captured everyone's attention. The flame shall face the storm at Windsor's heart. Advisors scrambled to decode it. Was it a threat, a warning, a foretelling of personal ruin or institutional collapse? But what struck with the most terrifying force was the reference to someone Catherine knew intimately. A line buried near the end, almost overlooked, carried the most ominous weight. The lion of lineage shall waver. The delay shall crack the realm's reflection. For those who understood the symbolism, there was no ambiguity. The lion was William. His hesitation, whatever it may be, was destined to become a fracture point in Catherine's journey. Not an enemy's sabotage, but a loved one's uncertainty. That revelation hit hardest. Those closest to Catherine reported a haunting shift. She was shown the second prophecy in private. When she emerged, her eyes were red, her hands trembling. One staffer recalled her saying only, "It's not over. It never was." What had begun as a mysterious inheritance of legacy had now turned into something darker, a gauntlet of survival. The emotional toll was immediate. Security around Windsor was heightened. Schedules were altered. Even the palace communications team was placed under internal review. But none of these measures could mask the storm that now loomed on the horizon. Catherine's greatest test would not come from Camilla, nor the public, nor tradition. It would come from love, from loyalty, from a moment of hesitation that might cost everything. The prophecy's second act had been set into motion, and as the palace scrambled to regain control, silence fell over its grandest rooms. Something ancient had awakened again. This was no longer about symbolism. This was about survival. As the veil of prophecy thickens, Buckingham Palace braces for what feels like the second act of a royal reckoning. For the first time in decades, the White Drawing Room, reserved only for moments of crisis or coronation, hosted a full-scale emergency meeting. The ornate silence was broken by the gravity of what had emerged, a second prophecy, more dangerous than the first, and a royal house caught in the eye of a gathering storm. Charles, visibly strained, summoned the royal council behind closed doors. His face, lined with the burden of both father and monarch, gave nothing away. But inside, he was grappling with an impossible choice: to bury the prophecy and preserve order, or to let it stand and risk reshaping the very structure of royal authority. The debate that followed was as vicious as it was hushed. Some believed the document should be sealed again, erased from the line of succession's narrative. Others argued it had already passed the point of no return. The public sentiment, the emotional undercurrent of the nation, it was already with Catherine. The prophecy, whether myth or fate, had become reality in the eyes of the people. At the center of the storm sat William. Pressed for a response, he didn't hesitate. He stood, calm but unshakable, and declared what many feared would tear the family in two. "I stand with Catherine. She is not rising, she has risen. I will not turn from that." His words were not just a vow, they were a shift. In that moment, the future king chose legacy over loyalty to the traditional order. And then, without announcement, Camilla left the room. She did not speak. She did not return. Witnesses described the air afterward as fractured. Something had broken, not dramatically, but permanently. The monarchy, long guided by structure and silence, had split beneath the weight of prophecy and truth. From that moment forward, the institution would never function the same. In the days that followed, the palace's public statements grew increasingly cryptic. Carefully worded phrases appeared in press releases: revival of heritage, the natural arc of tradition, a flame returning to its rightful bearer. To the public, it was poetic. To insiders, it was confirmation. The prophecy, once secret, had become code. A new narrative was being spun, one that carefully honored the past, while ushering in a future shaped by a woman Victoria had called the Restorer. The world watched, breathless. Foreign dignitaries issued formal notices of interest. Analysts and historians filled airwaves with speculation. News outlets declared Buckingham Palace frozen not by indecision but by awe. Something irreversible had begun. But in the silence that follows, Catherine steps forward not as a future queen, but as the embodiment of a legacy Victoria believed would one day rise again. As winter winds sweep across the palace gates, a quiet ceremony unfolds away from flashing cameras and official announcements. Under soft candlelight, a sealed box untouched for over 150 years is handed to Catherine. It had been locked by Queen Victoria herself, with instructions never to open it until the one mentioned in her prophecy fulfilled the signs. The seal breaks with a soft crack, and inside rests a single item, a delicate locket adorned with the royal insignia and a hand-engraved inscription for the one who rises. In that moment, history doesn't just speak, it bows. The locket is not a trinket, it is confirmation. Catherine, long underestimated, long confined to grace and protocol, has become something more. The silent flame has grown into a torch, and the monarchy, once frozen by tradition, now moves again, slowly, reverently, toward a future forged not by entitlement, but by embodiment. In the weeks that follow, Catherine appears at a global summit. No speech, no announcement, just her presence, wearing sapphire and pearl, and around her neck, Victor. Aya's locket. The symbolism is deafening. The world doesn't need a proclamation, this is it. The rise is no longer theory, no longer prophecy. It is real, visible, irreversible. The response is thunderous. Public sentiment, once frayed and fatigued, surges with something rare: belief, hope. A sense that something ancient has been reborn, not recycled. Commentators who once focused on fashion now speak of fortitude. Across the globe, headlines read the same: the crown finds its flame. In schools, children ask about Queen Victoria's prophecy. In households, the monarchy is spoken of not as spectacle, but as stability. The shift isn't loud, it's seismic. Meanwhile, Camilla's presence begins to diminish. No official statement, no scandal, just absence. Her public schedule quietly shortens. Her engagements, once front-page material, now occupy side columns. The palace makes no mention of changes, but everyone knows. The transition, though unspoken, is unfolding with the force of inevitability. Those within the institution who once whispered doubts now move in silent compliance. They understand. The crown is not being passed, it is being fulfilled. A legacy, long buried in paper and prophecy, is breathing again. The final piece comes from Victoria herself. Found folded in the base of the locket, a handwritten note in delicate script. 5 words and nothing more: the rose will bloom after frost. Let her lead. It is both a blessing and a verdict. One final message from the woman who foresaw it all. Buckingham Palace, in response to growing speculation, releases a carefully worded statement acknowledging the historic and symbolic echoes of legacy. Avoiding any direct confirmation, but doing little to silence the truth. By now, it doesn't matter. The people have already decided. Catherine has not taken the throne. She has become the throne's meaning. And so, under the eyes of history and the weight of centuries, Catherine did not just inherit a crown, she fulfilled a queen's vision and changed the fate of a kingdom. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.